Hey guys, so in this video, I want to talk a little bit about life's challenges and difficulties, and then also asking the question, how difficult does life really need to be? So when I was going into this week, I had a different idea for the video that I wanted to make. Originally, I was thinking about making a video as a follow-up to the one I made last week about the challenges of trying to be yourself in the world. And then I was working on a course this week where it was a video course, and the guy in the video really brought up this question, and I was so taken aback by it, and it was just such a just a mind bomb that I continued to think about it and decided that this is something that I really want to start working on processing through, and I think would make a good conversation for the channel. So for anyone who's been watching my stuff for a while, you probably get the sense that I'm pretty into self-development literature, whether it's for becoming a better business person, just living a better life, trying to improve your quality of life, etc. All good stuff. So one of the courses I was taking this week was talking a lot about how to process emotions, dealing with trauma, and a lot of goal setting stuff as well. And the video I was watching, the guy really brought up the question about how difficult does life really need to be? And he attested that, a lot of challenges that we had in life are things that we take on ourselves that we don't necessarily need to. That if we decided to orient our lives properly, we could continue to take on challenges and do a lot of stuff, and life still doesn't have to be nearly as hard and taxing and stressful as we make it out to be. And it was a really interesting conversation because, I've always understood that, there's a great line I heard from a guy in the Spec Ops community that life's hard and it's harder when you're dumb. So I had this sense that, a lot of life's challenges are avoidable, but I hadn't thought about it to this degree before. And like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about it. So obviously, going into this video, we acknowledge that life is difficult inherently. That's just part of the human condition. That's part of what life is, regardless of what time you're born into, what country you are living, your economic status. People have different kinds of challenges, different life circumstances, but everybody has to deal with, keeping on top of their health, maintaining their relationships, trying to balance all their different responsibilities to, family members, community, etc., and trying to find things that you do in your life that make life purposive and meaningful and give you a sense of peace about it. So obviously, life has a certain types of unavoidable difficulties that we all just have to contend with. And that's just the nature of what we're doing here. But then there are other things that are not quite like that. There are things that we tend to take upon ourselves, according to this guy, that ultimately don't serve us and maybe detract from the kind of life that we could be living. So the guy in the course, he referenced the Buddha and how one of the Buddha's biggest claims is that all suffering in life is related to attachment and desire. And this is a sentiment that you can find in other world religions and philosophies. So I don't know if I would necessarily follow it absolutely to suggest that an attachmentless life is the best life, but I can see how there's, a certain amount of wisdom in that. And he talked about this in context of basically what's going on in our mind of the things that we are emotionally and mentally attached to. So you start thinking and asking yourself questions like, how much of the stresses in my life is as a result of me trying to cope with my insecurities? How much of it is me trying to prop up my ego to make that feel good? How much of it is pressure we put on ourselves to be perceived a certain way by other people in our lives, or live up to somebody else's expectations for us, or even to our own expectations for ourselves, whether that's coming from family members, whether that's coming from coworkers, from friends, from other people that we consider influential. And so much of that is stuff that we ultimately take on ourselves. There will be people that try to influence you and try and give you suggestions and advice and whatnot along the way. But ultimately, it comes down to us to internalize these things. And we start telling ourselves stories and have these programs that we operate from that, like I said, ultimately comes from us. And thinking about my own life, and one of the reasons this resonated so much with me is that ever since I was young, I've spent a lot of time up in my head. I was a very anxious kid, had a lot of stress, a lot of insecurities, and I 100% resonated with what this guy was talking about as far as all the things in life that we take on ourselves that don't serve us, that we don't need to have, but we latch onto. I've mentioned in previous videos that I used to ground a lot of my sense of self-worth in achievements in doing big things, climbing mountains like I talk about. And even today, I still deal with that pressure to some degree. And like in my voiceover career, I would like to be thought of as a great voice actor by peers and clients alike. I would like to be respected for the quality of work that I put out. And that is important to me to a degree. I mean, as much as I try to avoid it, I absolutely care to some degree what other people think about me and how I'm regarded there. And I hold standards for myself as well. And I've had a trouble with perfectionism and not feeling comfortable with myself, not living up to certain standards that I set for myself. And when you start to take a look at all these stories, these processes whirring around in your mind about things that you worry about, things that you're aspiring to or holding on to, and you take a step back, you can start asking the question, okay, how important are these things really? How much of this stuff do I actually need to hold on to and need to tell myself? And even if maybe it has a place in your life, am I giving this more emotional weight than it deserves? And that was the thing that really took me aback and made me want to think about it to such a degree that I even made a video chatting about it, because that just hits so close to home for me. I mean, you think about so much of what's going on in your head, your thoughts, when maybe I get cut off in traffic or I get annoyed by something. If you can take a step back and see where that's coming from, it's ultimately almost all rooted, at least in my experience, back to a place of pride or a place of complacency, of assuming that things are going to work out in a certain way because I've just gotten used to that, or it's comfortable or convenient for me for things to be that certain way. And when I really think about it, I realize that a lot of these things are not things that I need to hold on to. I mean, there are things I want to do in life, but it's like, I don't need them to live ultimately the best life that I want to do. And it's a little bit mind-blowing when I start to really think about all the implications about that. And you start thinking, okay, how much of the way I'm living my life right now is based around, trying to make my ego happy, trying to live up to other people's expectations. And we get so used to that sometimes that we don't even think about it. That's just how we operate. That's how we go about our day. And we don't even stop to think, is this right? Is this helpful? Is this necessary? Is this going too far beyond where we ought to be? And like I said, this is something that I'm still new to and that I'm asking a lot of questions about. And unfortunately, I don't think I have a lot of answers to share with you guys today. So, you can help be here and ponder with me about that. But one definite first step that I think is worth taking is just to be mindful of this kind of stuff. So as I continue to go about my day, starting up, we got a new month here going into May, and I'm starting up a new work week. Just wanting to be more mindful with this information in the back of my mind about, okay, what sort of thought processes enter my mind when I encounter a challenge or an obstacle? What sort of things am I stressing about? What things am I avoiding? And if you can even start just being mindful of that stuff and noticing, okay, this is how my mind tends to work. These are the sort of thoughts that come up when this happens or this happens. Then I think that's the best place to start for actually challenging them and maybe even changing or dispensing with them. They say in like Alcoholics Anonymous that the first step you have to take is acknowledging that you have a problem in the first place. And whether or not you decide that the processes going on in your mind are a problem or not, it's important to be aware of them so that you can make that decision from there. All right, guys, there's my little rant for today. Appreciate you sticking around. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And that's what I got this week. So definitely going to be talking more about this stuff as it continues to be on my mind. And definitely have to see where things go from here. As always, appreciate you. Take care and God bless.